especially the women and young men who were interviewed in this research. I also like to acknowledge the interpreter Marie and also Luisa, who you can probably see here trying to operate the machine. And also she was the assistant who took a lot of the photos that you can see on the screen and gathered the consent forms. But this research is dedicated to the participants. I would like to dedicate my work on this report to you all. This is your story. This is for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geraldo. I think it's just such an incredible testament to the dedication and work that each of our researchers put into this, the tremendous trust that they built with the participants in each of the interviews and focus group discussions. These are not easy topics to share. And Paulo, I think in particular, you hit the nail on the head, that these reports just barely scratch the surface of the reality of what people are experiencing, and in particular, hearing just how impactful and how aware each of these individuals are that what is happening to them is not right, it's not just, and that they should be able to access these services on an equal and non-discriminatory basis. And so without further ado, I want to close this session, as I know in the next session we'll get into some of the pressing issues that emerged in these interviews, but I just want to thank all of our researchers for the tremendous care that they put into building the trust and being able to gather these experiences, and how impactful it is to hear from individuals what their realities have been, so that we can understand where we've been and understand where we need to go to overcome those barriers and ensure that the rights of women and young people with disabilities are being fulfilled. So I'll close this session and pass it over to my colleague, Sofia Minieri, who will be moderating the next session. Sofia.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you to the researchers for the tremendous work that you have done to make these reports a reality. It is a pleasure for me to introduce our next panel that will be focused on the most pressing issues impacting fundamental rights of women and young people with disabilities living in Fiji, Samoa, and Vanuatu, and key recommendations to address these issues. And in this panel, we have four wonderful speakers. Faatino Utamapu, the General Manager of Nuanua o Lealofa, NOLA from Samoa. Freda Willy from the Sunflower Association in Vanuatu. Anna Saini Bakaidia, Disaster Risk Reduction Project Support Officer from the Fiji Disabled People's Federation in Fiji. And Anjali Jand, Human Rights and Gender Advisor for the Pacific Disability Forum. And during this panel, we would like to invite our speakers to share their reflections building on some of the testimonies included in the needs assessment reports for the three countries, for Samoa, for Vanuatu, and for Fiji. So to get us started in this panel, I would like to invite Faatino from NOLA from Samoa to share her reflections in relation to the following testimony that is included in the Samoa Needs Assessment Report. So, the 54-year-old woman with a visual impairment who joined a focus group discussion held in Samoa told the researchers, and I will quote her: "I cannot go to the doctor by myself or make decisions. It is always my mother who communicates to the doctor, and the doctor talks to my mother." So Tino, building on this testimony, we would like to know more about to what extent women and young people with disabilities from Samoa are able to make autonomous decisions about their sexual and reproductive health. And we would also like to know your thoughts about in addition to these communication barriers reported by this particular woman, what other barriers are preventing women and young people with disabilities in Samoa from having access to sexual and reproductive health services? So, Gino, the floor is yours.
Distinguished delegates joining us virtually and in person, representing development partners, government ministries, CSOs, and most importantly, persons with disabilities, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to share with you the experience of persons with disabilities who have been highly involved in the compilation of the reports in my capacity as the manager for the only OPD in Samoa who is managed and covered by persons with diverse disabilities. Let me begin by saying that SRHR right is not a given. It should be respected, and it is an entitlement for all of us. And as a Christian country, I think we know the story of Adam and Eve, where Eve was gifted by God with the ability to reproduce, and being the creator of all women and girls, I'm pretty sure that when this was granted, God did not say to Eve, okay, this is an entitlement of all, but not others. However, the experience of a 54-year-old woman with visual impairment who stated that she is unable to communicate to the doctor without her mother really shows that women and girls with disabilities cannot make autonomous decisions on how to communicate or about their SRHR rights. It is also suggesting that the decision-making power rests with their families. And therefore, because of this, they are not able, and indeed this woman herself is unable to make an informed decision and to address her SRHR needs, which are fundamental to all women and girls, regardless of their disability. Next. This experience also tells us that there is multi-level of restriction and exclusion, as well as the discrimination experienced by women and girls with disabilities in accessing SRHR, not to mention the other essential services. These findings, and I'm sure you will be able to read the whole report as the report speaks for itself, but these findings also tells us that there are other barriers faced by women and girls with disabilities. Such as the denial of reasonable accommodation, which is fundamental to the access by women and girls with disabilities to SRHR services and programs. Reasonable accommodation includes but not limited to access to sign language, braille, pictorial interpretation, to name a few. In many cases, this report also suggests that the barriers to access by persons with diverse disabilities to SRHR services
and the limited capacity to access starts from their own homes and their own families. Next. It is also suggesting that there is a huge disparity and disconnect between what is written on paper and the reality. While the report speaks about challenges, it also presents opportunities for us to consider in order to improve access to SRHR and essential services by women and girls with diverse disabilities. So we are grateful to the support of UNFPA and all its partners, including women and girls with disabilities who are present here today, for the hard work in contributing to this report one way or another. The report itself presents not just the challenges, but a lot of good work that have been done and are continuing to do by our partners to enhance the rights to access SRHR by women and girls with disabilities, such as the MOU, which we have with Samoa Family Health Association, which stipulates low cost and free SRHR services that are available for women and girls with disabilities. Next. The report also can be viewed as an instrument